A fresh round of attacks have happened between America and Iran. It's been going on for over 10 days now. There are major locations, particularly in southern Iran, that have been targeted by American missiles. And in response, Iran is targeting American military bases and other installations across the Middle East. The war has restarted in full earnest. The markets are reacting negatively. The stock markets have been falling globally, and oil has now inched up upwards of $80 a barrel. What gives in a situation like this? Are we now looking at a prolonged war? Are we looking at these short bursts where both sides go at each other and then we're back to a relative peace? Is there any chance at all for diplomacy and to try and get things back to a semblance of normalcy? I'm now joined by a very special guest in this Times Now Global Exclusive. Matteo Renzi is the former Italian Prime Minister. Thank you very much for joining us here on Times Now. We've had a month and a half of the war. Then we had a ceasefire from the middle of April up until the last week of June. And now, for the last almost 2 weeks now, there's been incessant attacks by the Americans and then in retaliation by the Iranians. Is the war now fully back on the table? Are we looking at a full-blown conflict again between these two sides? And what may give? Because this time around, the justification seems to be that we need to settle the status of the Strait of Hormuz.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. And your question is a very big question and a hard question, because really we live in a chaotic time, and every time we have some news who change totally the situation. So every single problem, every single dossier is unpredictable. And that is, of course, a great chance for diplomacy. But the real question is, there is a diplomacy able to fix the situation? Look the framework, very brief framework around the world. Russia-Ukrainian crisis with the aggression of Russians in February 2022, then October 7, then the crisis of Strait of Hormuz. And at the same time, we don't understand what happens between China and Taiwan until the situation in Venezuela or in Cuba. The conclusion is we have a world really in a very bad situation. You asked me what is the situation in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. I think, of course, everyone have to condemn the terrible regime of Ayatollah, no doubts about that. But at the same time, we have to be clear, the decision of President Trump to open a war without a plan A, a plan B, a plan C to close was a mistake, because today Iranian guys have the idea to control Strait of Hormuz, and the Strait of Hormuz is a great problem, not only for oil, not only for energy, but also for food and for every type of goods. So, in conclusion, I think nobody could predict what happens. I think common sense and good sense have to prevail, but frankly speaking, we need today an international multilateralism cooperation which nobody look. So we have to work together, everyone, particularly starting from United Nations General Assembly in September.
I'll come to the multilateralism in a second, but I want to deal with this current flare-up, this current round of hostilities, and it centers around the Strait of Hormuz. Now, America and many other countries around the world have said the Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway. It has to be free. It has to be open. Iran says we're going to charge some kind of a service fee or a toll because that's the only way we can rebuild our country. How does one resolve this contradiction?
This contradiction was created by the mistake of American guys to attack without a strategy. Because before that, nobody discussed about the Strait of Hormuz, exactly as nobody discussed about the tariff or the payment in every single corner, in every single strait. So the idea to give to Iranian the possibility to manage the resolution of crisis in Hormuz come from a mistake from USA. Of course, we cannot accept the idea of Iranian's regime to control and to check the Strait of Hormuz. That is unacceptable. First of all, for the people, for the countries who stayed in front of Iran, that means, of course, the GCC, the most important GCC guys. So that means Saudi, that means Emirates, that means Qatari, that means Bahrain. But we cannot accept the idea in a world everyone could wake up in the morning and decide this strait, crucial for the global trade, became a commodity of the single country. That is unacceptable.
Correct.
But to arrive to an agreement, I think we need a different approach in the dossier, because the idea of which President Trump had to explain, I decide because I'm the president of the United States. It's not a good idea, and the results show a failure of our American friends. I'm very good friend of United States America. I believe in the American dream, but at the same time, I think this White House made too much mistakes.
Tell me this. You talked about multilateralism. The only way that they can reopen the Strait of Hormuz and make it free and open again as it was before is if there is a multilateral coalition of navies and armies around the world that can enforce the safe passage of commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And I know some countries in Europe, France, I think the UK, had all suggested to President Trump that they are willing to send their naval ships to escort the safe passage of commercial tankers. President Trump has not taken warmly to that idea. Neither have the Europeans, and his accusation is the Europeans are not willing to join in the war effort against Iran. So what happens to multilateralism?
I don't think multilateralism could be there is the president of the United States who decide, I open a war, and then after 2 months of problems, he called the European allies, also the other alliance, and ask, oh, you don't give me a support. You are not good with me. You are not fair because you don't support my war. If there is multilateralism, we decide together before an intervention, not after to try to fix the problem caused by the single guy. Very clearly, that is not true only for Europe. That is true particularly for the Gulf, the GCC countries, because nobody asked the authorization to bomb Iran without to Qatari or other guys. No, nobody. President Trump decided, communicated, and then now he pretend everyone could join to him. Of course, there is a problem also in Europe. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Let me be very frank. I'm not so diplomat. We have a problem as Europe, because Europe was a great idea. 27 countries who stopped a civil war for centuries in the European countries. But at the same time, now Europe is in the hands of red tape, of bureaucracy, and not in the light of political vision. So Europe have a problem. I agree with this position. Europe have to wake up and change position and give a new a very important effort in the planet.
So, but you know,
you
talking
cannot
about
start with this idea of Trump decided and everyone have to follow him, because Trump today is a problem for the global world and also inside the United States of America.
talking about Europe and the problems with Europe, we have seen just recently this public sparring between the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Italy. And no one can quite make out, you know, what exactly led to this or what is it that they're fighting over. But it's a public sparring. It's not some private, you know, rivalry that's going on. It is a public sparring that's happening between the Prime Minister of Italy and the President of the United States.
Frankly speaking, when I was Prime Minister, I worked with the President Obama, and with the President Obama, in case of some problems of discussion, we had a private room to discuss. With Trump, it is impossible because everything finishes in Truth or in X or in Instagram. So I think our Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, who she's not my best friend because I'm at her opposition, but between Italy and Trump, between President Trump and Prime Minister Meloni, I haven't doubts. I stay with my country. I stay with my Prime Minister. I support Giorgia Meloni and the Italian Republic against the attacks, very bad and not very good, of President Trump. So,
no, can I just interrupt? You are saying this despite knowing that there could be an election round the corner in Italy, and you're still willing to support the government on this issue, who you are politically opposed to.
No, I'm a political opposition.
Correct.
I'm against the government of Giorgia Meloni, exactly as Giorgia Meloni was against me when I was Prime Minister. Yeah. So she's a far right, I'm center left. We are very different. We have a very different approach about the future of economy, the future of Europe, the future of innovation. A lot of things have a very great difference between Giorgia and myself. But if you ask me, between the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Italy, first of all, I'm Italian, and right or wrong, that is my country, as the famous expression I used to say. But particularly in this point, we cannot accept an idea of sovereignism which President Trump continues to spread around the world. And let me be very clear and frank with you. The mistake of Giorgia Meloni wasn't when she decided to give an opposition to President Trump. No. The mistake of Giorgia Meloni was before, when she followed blindly and very badly the position of President Trump. So no doubts about that, because the United States of America have to be the pillar of the world, the friend of the free world. If we have a leader in White House, a POTUS, a President of the United States, who continue to spread hate, division, and polemics, that is a problem for the United States and also
for the world,
for Europe.
I do want to ask you.
Up, of course.
I do want to ask you though. One set of global leaders who seem to have a great relationship, unlike the relationship between the Italian Prime Minister and the US President currently, is the relationship between the Indian Prime Minister and the Italian Prime Minister. There are memes about them. They seem to have a very warm and cordial relationship. I want to know what you make of that.
I'm very happy if there is good relation between Indian people and Italian people. Because let me be very frank, I think India and Italy could play a very important role. Of course, you are the most populous country in the world. We have an incredible growth, particularly in innovation, ICT, in AI, in the quantum, in all the areas of innovation. And I think the Italian brain could work together with the Indian brain to create a global world based on prosperity and success. That is as a rule. Then I know there is a very good relation, also personal relation between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Meloni, and I joked with both. I joked with Giorgia Meloni about that, and also when I met some opportunities, Prime Minister Modi. I worked with the Prime Minister Modi when he became Prime Minister. I was Prime Minister. I know there is the melody in the social media and a meme and the fun things in the social media. But I think it's important not consider this particularly friendship only between two leaders, but that is my hope, between two people. And we have to encourage the relation between India and Italy in business, in a lot of sectors, in the cultural exchange, in the universities exchange. So we have a very great opportunity to come back in a very good time and the season of relation between Italy and India. I hope that is not only simply in the relation between Modi and Meloni, is not simply melody. When melody will change, when music will change, I hope we will continue with a very good relation between Roma and Delhi, between Milano and Mumbai, between all our beautiful cities, starting from my city, which is Florence.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Matteo Renzi, former Italian Prime Minister, for joining us here on this global exclusive conversation on Times Now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.